Michigan, back when he was a high school senior right down the road here at Edsel Ford High School. And of course, he declined our offer and went up the road to play for Coach Perlis. And his quarterback coach, as I recall, was Coach Watts. And they beat us one year, I think, didn't they, Dan? In Ann Arbor. And you never forget those games. But and Coach Guidry, he and I have something in common. We've both been interim coaches. And I met him years ago, maybe 15 years ago, when he was an assistant coach down right outside New Orleans. And in watching him at the press conference and hearing him last night, I agree with Will. This guy has got something, and he's going to be a great head coach. There's no doubt in my mind. But I'm here most of all to say to the players, I commend you for getting here. It isn't easy. There's a lot of good teams out there that did not earn the right to play a bowl game. And to get here, it takes hard work, it takes toughness, it takes men who are competitive, who want to win, it takes teamwork, it takes coaching, and you have all those things. And we are proud to have you here. I congratulate you, and I would remind you, and by the way, I want to congratulate the triplets for the honor they've received here today. Thank you for all you did for this game and what you've done for this community. But if I could give you one piece of advice based on 32 years of college coaching, it is this. The greatest thing about your opportunity at Western Kentucky and at Central Michigan is not to play football. It is to get an education. And looking back on my career, the one thing, when I go to all the reunions we have, you guys will have reunions, and you'll remember this season, you'll remember this bowl game. And the guys that will be the happiest and the most proud are those guys who finished their degrees. And so I urge you, gentlemen, I've had some guys that didn't finish their degrees, and it is with great regret that I see them today. And it's harder. Each year goes by, it's harder to go back to school and finish it. But this degree and this opportunity that you have gives you a chance to go out and compete in a global economy. And without that degree, it's much harder. And so it's interesting that Coach Triplett, or Mr. Triplett, asked for that to be announced to you, to finish your education. And he's right on. We're expecting a great football game, and you're going to play in a great stadium. You're going to have a great crowd there, and you're going to play on national television. And when you have an opportunity to do that, you want to play your best. And you want to play with respect for your opponents. Last year, in one of the early bowl games, at the end of the game, there was a fight. And it was a complete embarrassment to those universities and to those players who were involved. That's how they will be remembered. So go into this game and play with great respect for the people that you're playing against, for this bowl, and for this game. As you go on, you will understand that this game taught you a lot of valuable lessons that you can't learn many other places. And I want to leave you with the story. If I ask you, the players, if you've never heard of a guy named Slick Goodwin, almost no one, probably no one, would say, yeah, I've heard of Slick Goodwin. And there's good reason. But I first heard that name 30 years ago I went to a movie called The Right Stuff, and it's based on the book by Tom Wolfe, and it takes place, it's a true story, takes place out in Edwards Air Force Base in the desert of California. In 1947, just after World War II had ended, the United States and the Soviet Union are engaged in a bitter and frantic race to see who can build a plane and fly a plane faster than the speed of sound. And so every great young pilot in the United States is trying to get to Edwards Air Force because that's where you prove that you are the best. That's where you have to go if you want to be known as one of the great pilots in this country. And the opening scene of this movie takes place out on an old bar called Pancho's. And the opening scene is this guy named Slick Goodman walks up to into the bar, and he is immediately comes to the table of some of the commanders of the Air Force Base. And these guys are really excited because they feel like they have now developed a plane fast enough to fly faster than any plane had ever flown. And so Slick Goodman comes up to this table. Now, Slick Goodman at that time was considered to be the finest pilot in this country. And so they say to him, they say, Slick, we think we've got a plane. Would you be interested in flying this plane? He said, yes, I would. And they said, well, how much would you charge? Because Slick Goodman was a civilian. And he said, $150,000, non-negotiable. And so they said, well, we'll get back to you later today. We've got to check it out and find out if we can afford to pay you that money. And Slick Goodman leaves the bar, and almost immediately these officers, they say, well, there's no way the government is going to okay $150,000. They said, well, who are you going to get? The guy said, well, you know, over there in the corner, there's a guy sitting with his wife and some of his friends. He's a pretty good pilot. Yeah, what's his name? His name is Yeager, Chuck Yeager. And so they get up from the table, they go over into the corner, and they say to Chuck Yeager, they tell him they've got a plane, and Chuck Yeager says, yeah, I'd like to take that plane out. And they said, when do we go? He said, we go day after tomorrow. And so they start to leave the table, and this officer turns back to Yeager and he says, Chuck, how much money did you make? He said, I made $242. He said, is that a week? He said, no, it's a month. They leave. 2 days later, Chuck Yeager takes that plane up, breaks the sound barrier, and becomes one of the most famous pilots in the history of this country. And from the time I saw that movie, Chuck Yeager was one of my heroes. Here's a guy that was willing to do something for $242 a month, and another guy's asking for $150,000. And so, several years later, I have an opportunity to talk to Chuck Yeager. I have his phone number. I call him. By this time now, Yeager, who's been a decorated pilot in Vietnam, and down through the years, he's probably now in his mid-80s. And I dialed the number, and he picks up the phone and he says, Yeager. And I said, General Yeager, I said, I'm a football coach at the University of Michigan. Do you have a couple of minutes? And he said, yeah, coach. And I said, well, you know that scene in The Right Stuff? He said, is that a true story? He said, yeah, coach, that's true. He said, you see, Slick Goodman got a little greedy. He said, me, I was just trying to do my duty. My duty to my country. And so, you know, as a member of your football teams, you have a duty like some other places where they tell you what your duty is. And so I asked him the last question. I said, General, what advice could you give me that I could give to my players? And he said, well, tell them that don't worry about the outcome. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you know, when I got into that plane, he said, all the leading engineers and aviators in this country thought that when that plane broke the sound barrier, it would disintegrate, and that whoever flying that plane would be killed. And he said, and so when I got into that plane, I just made up my mind I was going to focus on doing the things that it took to fly that plane as fast as it could fly. And he said, I didn't worry about the outcome. And that's pretty good advice for all of us. It's pretty good advice for you as an athlete and as a person. When you have a job to do, you go in and you do the job. And don't worry about the outcome. Just do your best. And what you'll find is that almost all the time, your best will be more than good enough. Well, it's great to have you. Good luck in this game. I look forward to it. I look, because, you know, in hearing these coaches talk, I like the way you play. I like teams that run the football. And that's the way we always try to play at Michigan. And it's one of the reasons I'm so excited about seeing this game. So good luck and all the best to you. Thank you.